So we're learning Igeres HaKodesh, the fourth section of Tanya, Sacred Letters. We're on page 268. The Alter Rebbe in this Igeres, in this letter, warns us, teaches us, scolds us not to ask him for advice in material matters. And he brings proof from Chazal, from Tanakh, from various places that avenue is reserved for Nevi'im, a Navi. But for Chachamim, that's not their cup of tea. I didn't mention it yesterday, but Chabad Hasidim said about this letter, they said, what was the point of the letter if Hasidim still continued to ask their Rebbes for Eitzes and Gashmias? So what did the Baal Tanya accomplish with this letter? So Hasidim would say he accomplished to teach us what a Navi is all about. And I want to add to that he subconsciously was saying that he is a Navi, or a Rebbe is a Navi. Because if Hasidim go to a Rebbe to ask for Gashmis, the advice, obviously they consider him to be a Navi. That's not what it says here. But the point being that this letter was very much what he felt was the right Torah attitude. I mentioned yesterday, I don't know if you had a chance to hear it, Isser, but there is another part to this letter that precedes it, that the children, the Alter Rebbe's sons, who put Igeres HaKodesh together with the first three parts of Tanya when it printed, not originally, but later on, after his passing in 1813, I believe, over there it says that the Alter Rebbe starts by saying, I just don't have the time to see you all in Yechidus, and you're asking me questions about material matter. Kind of, you're wasting my time, that's not what I'm here for. And I can't do it anymore. And I told you yesterday that he even writes there that if you'll continue doing this, I will leave the country. And to that, the rest of the letter that we have printed here is the rest of that letter. And what we understand for that is that the Alter Rebbe teaches us, Moshe, that a tzaddik is not just a good rabbi, not just a good speaker, a good advisor, a nice guy. A Rebbe is, like I wrote in one of my captions for my YouTube videos of the Shir, he's a soul geologist. So you go to him for inyane, you go to him for soul matters, not material matters. Go to a doctor for health. Go to a lawyer for legal matters. Go to Mark for sports issues if you get hurt like me in the past, and I consulted with Mark, my dear friend, who gave me great advice, and thank God I'm pretty much back to myself. And to go to Hillel to be for therapy. What are you coming to the Alter Rebbe for therapy questions? Or, come on. Prayer is different. If you want the rabbi, you want the Rebbe to pray for you, to God on your behalf, that, God, I need parnasa. You need just a better livelihood. Pray to God that God bestow it upon me. And you feel that the Rebbe's prayers are more authentic and more pure, no problem. But that's prayer. That's prayer. That's not seeking advice. Should I live in Fort Lauderdale or should I live in Tampa? Should I be in this business or in that business? Should I buy this stock or that stock? That's not what you come to a Rebbe for. That's what he says in here so far. And what he started to teach us yesterday, and will continue today, is that he says to his people, I feel, although you're all good people, and you're all holy people, and you're all on the right page, and you want to do things for what's called the Shem Shemayim, for the sake of heaven, but you're also utilizing the physical material for that in a way that becomes primary to you. You hear that? And I emphasize that because the whole concept of the Baal Shem Tov, Hasidism, versus pre-Hasidism, was not to scorn the material body and the material world, but to inculcate it in the service of God. And the verse that is always quoted is, Kisida Chamor Seinacha, when you will see your enemy's donkey on the road and it's straggling, Oziv Taziv Imay, help it with its load. That's a verse in the Torah. And the interpretation of the Baal Shem Tov, I believe, is, or one of the Rebbe's, Kisira Chamor Seinacha, if you see your Chomer, you hear Hillel the word Chamor, which literally means donkey, but you can reverse the letters. Instead of Ches Mem Vav Reish, Ches Vav Mem Reish, which spells out Chomer, material, physical, corporeal. If you see your body as a scornful thing, as a hateful thing, as a way to drag you down and to make you sin and make you coarse and corporeal and ugly and disgusting and vulgar, you have the wrong attitude. Rather, Oziv Taziv Imay. Somehow make it be your assistant. Make the physical flesh and the bodily needs serve God. They should be incorporated in the service of God, and don't look at it as a scornful thing. And this was a teaching that the Baal Shem Tov taught, and this was, in a sense, his fundamental view of life versus pre-Hasidus. So, Moshe, if your daughter will ask you, what did Hasidus come to accomplish? What was before Hasidism and what was after? It's this issue that we're discussing now. So you will mark down after the shiur this class. You'll put it down somewhere, so when your daughter will ask you that question one day, or your grandchildren, God willing, you'll have the answer for them. On this and this day, we learned with Rabbi Dalfin, this and this is the answer. And and I'm saying that seriously. It's a very, very fundamental nekudah point, and explains the whole idea of Chabad houses and everything else that you see out there. It's based on this idea that the body, because the body wants to indulge. We want to eat a lot. We want to sleep a lot. We want to have relations a lot. All of those bodily needs. So one attitude is just to say it's disgusting, it's not Jewish, it's not holy, it's not God, and be abstinent and live like a monk and separate yourself from the world and live in a corner and don't look, The other attitude is, no, we'll be in the world, but we won't let the world change us. We will change the world. So the Chabad then goes to Timbuktu without a community like Bet Shemesh or even Fort Lauderdale or Brooklyn around them. I'm here. No mikveh, no minyan, no yeshiva, no kosher food. How you going to survive? We'll make it happen. And it was proven over and over and over. Today, it's not as observable because, you can go into almost any supermarket in the United States and you can get kosher products, even if they don't have a kosher section, right? Tam-Tams, Manischewitz Tam-Tams probably is a staple in most supermarkets across the United States. In Wyoming, in North Dakota, whatever, in New Mexico, even if there isn't a vibrant Jewish community. Because the kosher industry has infiltrated the food market in a very, very palpable, real way. But it used to be when the Rebbe in the late 50s and 60s came out with his call to leave the hub and to go out, and he spoke clearly. You won't have your orange juice. You won't have your kosher Chalav Yisrael milk. So what? There are Jews that need help. Assimilation is rampant. A fire is burning. Who's going to talk to them about marrying a Jew? Who's going to talk to them about being Jewish? That's the same idea of the Baal Shem Tov of 200 years ago. It's the exact same idea, just different people, a different lay of the land, But the concept is the same one. And I'm saying all this because the Alter Rebbe here, in this section we're about to begin learning today, addresses this issue. And he says, although that's true, but if you give credence to the material over the spiritual, you're missing the boat. Yes, you should use the material, but don't get famished. Don't get mixed up. And guess what, guys? It happens all too often. That we're genuine when we approach the Gashmias, but as we start using the material, hey, this tastes good. This feels good. This sounds good. And the next thing you know it, you are caught in the spider web of materialism to the point where when you don't have it, you go nuts. You can't live. Oy, I don't have running water. I don't have a bathroom. How did they live hundreds of years ago? Human beings were living in the deserts and they lived somehow. How did our great-grandparents, grandparents, and friends, survivors in the Holocaust time? My mother, of blessed memory, would share with me how they lived in one little room in Poland. Pre-war. Surely during the war. No one had luxuries, and you were so much happier. People were so much more together. Families were together. My food is your food. My pain is your pain. All of this is a derivative of making spirituality, which we call in ruchnius, supersede at it's over physicality and materialism, gashmias. And that's what he's going to talk about now. And he's going to talk about the issue that we discussed already once or twice in Tanya. Do you really believe that everything that happens to you and to the world is from God and that it's all good? He's going to tackle that issue now. So let's go to page 268. This is about 10, 12 lines. It's again chapter 22. The big paragraph begins with Ukamoi of Harachamon. Ukamoi of Rachamon. 4 or 5 lines later, there's a period. Vihine Lamaila Prinas Ponim. From God's perspective, the concept of a face, the face of God, Ponim, the countenance, Hu Haratzin Vacheshet, this is the will and the desire, Ashravina Shebashamayim, that God our Father in heaven, Mashpia Lebonov, he gives effluence to his kids, his children, Kol Tu Ve'lomim, all the best, V'chayin Nefesh, and he gives them the life of the soul, their soul life. V'guf, and their bodily life, be ava, with great love, v'rotzin, and will, chsheka, v'chveitza, desire is, he really gives it with great love, aidei teiras chayim, all through the living Torah, shehu ritzoyne yizbarich, which is God's will, asher nosan lonu, which he gives us, k'meshe kosav, as it says, and we say this in prayer in the Amidah, ki ba'er panecha nasat alona teiras chayim, with the shining, the illumination of your face, of God's countenance, you give us a living Torah, lasses b'ritzaynai, to do God's will. And therefore it says, b'oir pnei melech, with the light, with the shine of the face of the king, Chaim, the living king, b'ritzaynai, in his will. So God, Hashem, gives to the Jewish people an opportunity to connect to Ponim, to the face. Conversely, Mashain King, conversely, to those that worship idols, non-Jewish people who worship idols, Mashpia Chaye Gufam, he gives them life as well, because everything comes from God, but Shaloi Berotzen, not willingly, V'chsheke V'chveitze, and desirably. Lokach Nikroim, Nikra Elokim Acherim, that's why idols are called in the Torah, Moshe, other gods, Elokim Acherim, Sheyoinkim, because they nourish Mibchinas Achorayim. They get Isser, their sustenance and vitality, from what's called the level of the back, the backside. The Achorayim is the backside of a person. The Klippas Hillel, they too get energy from God, because without God, you can't exist. But in what way? It's like when you have to pay your employee that you don't like, you don't hand it to him face to face like I'm looking at you and you're looking at me. You turn around at your back and you throw it here, doggy, here's your check, here's your bone, go. That's also giving, but it's giving through the backside. In other words, I don't care for you, I don't like you. I need you because I can't schlep the boxes myself. But really, I don't like you. And I don't even want to look at you when I have to pay you. So the check is in the mail, the check is at the doorstep. You know? But if you like someone, you're eager to go to them and say, here's your payment. Thank you so much for what you did. I really appreciate it. In other words, more than the actual payment is the way you pay. And for our good doctor over here, more than the actual healing is the attitude of the doctor to the patient. The smile. I'm here for you. I really want to help you. Talk to me. You know, of course, I'm going to give you a diagnosis and give you a course of treatment and medicine and all that. But what's even more important is the attitude. So the Alter Rebbe says, the attitude that Hashem has towards Jews is a ponim attitude, a countenance attitude. The attitude Hashem has to those non-Jews that worship idols, not all non-Jews, but those that are idolaters, is, I don't like you guys. You guys are antithetical to what I'm about. So, but I do have to give you, I do choose to give you life because I want you to be in the world for whatever reason, free will or whatever. So I give you B'chinas Acharayim. V'kachol bi'odem haratzon v'cheshek. So too, as this is true in the cosmic realm of things, of spiritual energy, it is this way also by man. By a man, haratzon v'cheshek p'nisponim. The expression of face to face, that is pnimis. V'meina mekabel bi'ava v'rotzoin. And if he doesn't receive it with love and willingly, it's like you turn your back on God. Here, God, take my backside. And I don't have to use the vernacular. Everyone can figure it out themselves. Okay? Right. So the question is, God, Chevra, the question is, okay, it's very easy to say this. I should accept everything from God. Isser has a bad cold. Accept it with love. Accept it with will. God's will, it's the right thing, right? My hand's hurting me. It's hard. Why? Why are you making my hand hurt? I just had this hamstring thing, got out of it, had cellulitis, got out of it, boom, now my hand hurts me. It's like, why? So the question is, how do you accept what happens to you in your life with love, with acceptance? And acceptance, Moshe, facial acceptance, not begrudgingly. I have no choice. I have to accept. Otherwise, they'll lock me up in the penitentiary. You know what I'm saying? No. I want you, God. I love you, God. I love you with everything that you do for me, including giving me the pain. How do you accept that? Let's see what he says. It's the advice given by Hashem, Bifi Chazal, in the explanation of the sages, famous quote that sometimes we have a hard time listening to and accepting. Yoini, lefav shesh b'maisav, to check out your actions. I'm going to tell you a story afterwards, but now I'm going to read inside. Check yourself out, and you will find those things that need cleansing, yisurim, of punishment nature, of pain nature. V'yira le'ein goydel avosei love, and you'll see the great love to God, hamakalkelos ashura, which is, and your self-love, I take that back, your self-love covers up the right path. For example, a great and mighty king who washes soyas benoi, he washes the feces, the schmutz of his child, Yechidai, his only child, miroy v'avosei, because he really loves him. You know, I must tell you, this reminds me of my shver, my father-in-law, my wife's father. He was a Russian Yid, a chassid, a Chabadnik, came to Australia. When he came to our house, I remember when my children were growing up in Marin County in the 80s, he had such enjoyment changing the diapers of my little kids. You know, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And he called them nappies. They call them in Australia, they're not called diapers, they call them nappies. He said, should I change the nappies? I remember I said, father-in-law, to myself, I said, are you out of your mind? You have pleasure changing my kids' nappies? That's what the Alter Rebbe says here. Look inside. A king who enjoys dealing with the filth, with the feces, with the schmutz of his son, because he loves him so much. You love the child's feces too. Do you understand what's going on here? You can't separate. There's the child, the clean little baby, and then there's the schmutz when the child makes in its diapers. If you don't love the child's diapers at that age, when the child has diapers, you don't love the child. And I saw this. I'm telling you, I saw this. This isn't. So when I learned this piece over here, I had a living example, and I'm not there. I'm not there. But I had what to look up. I have what to look up to get there. So the Alter Rebbe tells us that when the Chazal say Hillel, Yefafshesh b'maisov, check out your deeds, what you did right, what you did wrong, and therefore you're getting the punishment for doing things that are wrong, you violated and all that. You have to not just check it out, you have to accept it and love it and understand that this is the therapy and the method for reconciliation and more so transformation and everything else. And when you'll do that, you'll have the face of God. And he brings the verse, Hashem will wash the feces, the schmutz of the daughters of Zion, of the Jews, chul, etc. We're going on to the top of the next page, Kuf Lamed Hey. Beruach mishpat, with the spirit of judgment. And when you show this attitude of acceptance and love of God, he says, like a face is reflected on water, right? When there's water, you put your face, show your face, it reflects back to you. When we realize how much God loves us, including when He gives us the punishment for, right? That will reflect to open up our heart to love Him. In the heart of every person who understands, Kol Maskil Umevim, Yokem Uhus Avas Hashem El Tachtoinim, Hashem's precious love to all of us below, Asher Hi Yekora V'Tova, which it's very precious and good, Mekol Chayo Olamim Kulam, more than all the worlds, because of Mayoker Chazdecha, Ki Toiv Chazdecha Mechayim, he brings different verses, Ki HaChesed Shu Pchinas Ava, because Chesed, benevolence, Chesed, kindness, is the expression of love, Hu Chaya Chayim, which gives the life to all worlds, but because of Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, right, from the Amida. God sustains us with life. God gives us life. Bechesed. It's a chesed. It's a kindness. V'oz gam Hashem yitein hatoiv. Hashem gives us good. V'yoyed upon a veilov, and the countenance is illuminated. B'chinas ava megula, in a revealed way. Asher hoisa tchila melubeshes. This love that was initially covered, concealed, invested in a garment. Umusoteres b'techocha megula. It was disguised in words of scolding. V'yimtiku hagvuras b'shorshem, but that causes that the severity, the gvuros, are sweetened by knowing the source of it, right? Again, prescribes a pill, and you take the pill, it burns, it's disgusting. But the end is that pill helps the person, right? Why? Because the source of the pill is coming from if the doctor and medicine feels this is, so it takes the form of being bitter, but when you look at its source, it's really good. So that sweetens the pill. It doesn't physically sweeten the pill, that the pill tastes bitter in your mouth, but the purpose of the pill is positive. That's the concept of hamtokas gvuros b'sharshon. How do you sweeten negativity, judgment, gvura? By looking at sharshon, the source. The izbatlu adinim. Ultimately, that will annul the judgment, the harsh approach. Netzach seled void, forever. Now, earlier, so all of this is predicated on the Chazal lefafshish b'maisav. So I'll conclude today's class with the story that I heard on a clip the other day, last week, which is phenomenal. Briefly, maybe you saw it, but a student in the Litvak Yeshiva, Ponovitz, which is in Bnei Brak, right, in Israel, he was a Sephardic student from Sephardic background, and the yeshiva is all Ashkenaz. Bottom line is, in the 80s, there was a rough going between Chabad and the Litvaks of Bnei Brak, and they would say not nice things, okay, about Chabad, about the Rebbe, whatever. And he was raised to look at everyone good. He was a Sephardic boy, but he didn't say anything. He didn't want to say anything because he was outnumbered. He's 1 out of 1,000. Anyway, a few years later, he decided to come to America. He goes to the airport. They say they're not letting him in because when they asked him at the customs or whatever, the checkpoint, and before you go in, where are you going? What are you doing? He didn't know any English. He only knew Hebrew. He said, I'm just going to America. They said, where are you going in America? I don't know. Who are you going to? I don't know. They said, you ain't going. And they had him in a room. They interrogated him. And they said, we're putting you on a bus. You can go back home. Shalom, bye. A little while later, someone comes in and says, we decided to let you go. Oh, 1 second. He got on the plane. He was he was on the plane. And then they called him off, and they asked him these questions, and he couldn't answer them, and they said, you're not going? And then they came back, and they said, now you could go. While he was sitting on the plane, he said to himself, why does God make me, what has happened? And he quoted this thing. He says, I was taught to check my act. When something seemingly bad happens to me, it's because of my sins, my issues. So he started to think, what did I do in my life that was wrong? It was a straight shooter. And he realized, you know what I did wrong? I kept my mouth shut when these other boys were degrading and humiliating and saying disgusting things about Chabad and the Rebbe. And I kept my mouth shut. Shtika koidah, the Gemara says, when you keep silent, you're supposed to speak up, you're guilty. That means you agree with them. And he says, this is why I'm being punished. And I'm not being allowed to go, because one of the places he was going to go was to see the Rebbe. He heard about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he made a resolution then that he's going to change his way. As soon as he had this thought and he made the resolution, they came into the room, they told him, you can get back on the plane. And he went to the Rebbe. He met Lubavitcher at the airport, at JFK, I think. He got to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was giving out, so he wanted to see the Rebbe. It was a Thursday or whatever it was. He couldn't see him then. They said Sunday morning he gives out dollars for tzedakah. Everyone can pass by. He could see him then. Comes Sunday, and he goes back to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says to him in Hebrew, Mochalach, Mochalach, Mochalach. I pardon you, I pardon you, I pardon you, with a big smile on his face. And he said, you have nothing to worry about. Here's $1 for tzedakah, and come back next week again. The person's name is Vanunu. He lives in Yerushalayim, and he says, I became a very wealthy man. And I'm looking at him speaking, and he has a big picture of the Rebbe behind him. A Sfardi learned in Ponovitz, and he comes up to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe read his mind, what he was thinking about on the plane. You understand? It all began with this Gemara. Yefashish b'maisav. So when I read these words, when I'm teaching you these words, it reminded me of this story. Everyone have a great day. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Take care.
Great story. Good.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.